Welcome, everybody. This is a council meeting of the municipality of the County of Annapolis. We'll begin with the roll call. District 1,
Bruce Prout.
District 2,
Ryan Fuzzy Connell.
District 3 is Alan Parrish, myself. District 4. You're muted, Councillor Bartow.
Sorry about that. Clyde Bartow.
District 5,
Lynn Longmire.
District 6,
Alec Morrison,
District 7,
David Hudson.
District 8,
Michael Gunn.
District 9,
Wendy Sheridan.
District 10,
Fred Redden.
and District 11.
Diane Leblanc.
Thank you, everyone. Are there any disclosures of interest of any of the items on the agenda for today from any of the councilors? Councillor Hudson? You're muted, Councillor Hudson.
Yes, item 9.1. That has to do with the facilities operating agreement with the Bridgetown Regional Recreation Association.
Great, thank you for that. You can advise us again when it comes up on the agenda, and if you've forgotten, we'll do our best to remind you.
Okay.
Next, item 3 on the agenda, the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? Councillor Redden?
Yeah, I'd like to add a motion for the convening of the Fire Services Committee. The Annapolis County Fire Services Association has requested a meeting with us about general fire services issues. And as the committee has not met in 2 years, I understand they have a number of things they would like to talk about.
Are you saying they're suggesting a meeting with council?
They're suggesting a meeting with the Fire Services Committee of Council prior to meeting with council.
Okay, so you're this. Where would that go on the agenda, Madam Clerk?
I guess you'll have to add it after in new business as 8.3.
8.3?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other changes or additions to the agenda? If not, I'll ask for a motion approving the agenda as amended. Moved by Councillor Prout, seconded by the Deputy Warden. Is there any discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk?
So if the motion could be read as printed to approve the order of the day as amended, including a presentation from Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities following the adoption of the minutes, please.
Would the mover and seconder agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next, we come to item 4.1, the adoption of the municipal council minutes from the February 15th regular municipal council meeting. Are there any changes to the minutes as circulated? I don't see any hands up, so I'll call for a vote on the, I'll ask for a motion.
Right here.
Moved by the Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor Longmire. All those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Next are the adoption of the municipal council minutes of the special meeting held on March the 1st. Is there a motion to approve those as circulated? Moved by Councillor Prout, seconded.
Just a question, if I may, on those minutes.
Sure.
On page 19,
Okay.
I can find it here. I'm wondering, on the Bridgetown area rate, include the debt. Maybe I've misread this, but there was an amendment made and the follow-up is the motion lost, 10 in favor, 1 against, 1 against. Would that be the amendment was lost and there were 10 against, 1 in favor? Maybe I'm misremembering that, or maybe I'm just confused.
Motion was lost? Oh, okay. Yeah, one in favor, 10 against.
Okay. And that was
Thank you, Councilor Prout.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. So with the mover and seconder, I think I already took a motion on the floor.
You
With the
had a
mover-
mover, you didn't, well,
Yeah.
Councilor
was there
Prout asked a
second?
question. I'm not sure you got an actual motion yet.
Okay, let me start over again then. Would someone like to move the adoption of the minutes as amended? Moved by the deputy warden, seconded by Councillor Hudson. Is there any further discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next, we come to the presentation. There's a presentation from the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities with respect to the reorganization of that organization. And we're joined by the Executive Director, Juanita Spencer, and also by a board member, Brenda Chisholm Beaton. Welcome, ladies. Unless there's anything else, Madam Clerk, I'll turn the floor over to them.
Yes, thank you.
Please go ahead. We're looking
Thank
forward
you
to
so
hearing
much.
from you.
Thanks so much, Warden, and just I'd like to extend my thank you to Council for allowing us the opportunity for the presentation today. Just to introduce myself, my name is Mayor Brenda Chisholm Beaton of the town of Port Hawkesbury. I'm also the Vice President of NSFM, and I will hand things over to Juanita to do a brief introduction while I am preparing the presentation. Over to you, Juanita.
Good morning, everyone. As stated, I'm Juanita Spencer. I'm the CEO with NSFM. I've had the privilege of certainly meeting some of you, but I believe there are a number of new faces around the table. Just out of curiosity, can I ask how many people were new in our the last election? I've kind of lost faces here, so maybe somebody can tell me how many new councillors we have.
We have 5 new councillors, and we had a new one this year, Councillor Connell, who I don't count as new.
Okay, fair enough. So for those that don't know, NSFM and COVID sort of is to blame on that. Normally we would have had our in-person conferences. We have them in the spring of the year and the fall of the year, and we've had to do virtual for the last couple. So for those that are new to the organization, just briefly, we are a nonprofit legislative voice for municipalities. We are very, very fortunate that we represent all 49 municipalities in the province, and we certainly don't take that for granted. We are an organization with a very long history. We've been around for, I think, about 110 years or so. And we've been doing things in many respects very much the same way as when we started. And so COVID kind of gave us that opportunity to step back, to take a look at how we do things. We were forced, of course, to pivot. Pre-COVID, we wouldn't be doing this virtually. So it gave us an opportunity to look at how we operate as an organization, how we represent our members, and how do we do things better. And that's kind of where this process all got started. And with that, Brenda, why don't I hand it over to you?
Thank you so much, Juanita, for that segue. And so I will take us through the presentation here today. After we make our way through the slides, we'll make some time for questions and answers. So with that, I will open. So on November 30th, the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities Board of Directors attended a facilitated session for 2 days in Truro. We had a hard look at our organization and decided that it was time to try new strategies because what we were currently doing simply wasn't working. Thus, the spirit of these 2 days were to take a deep dive into where we are, where we want to go, and how best to make impactful changes and to make us a more effective member organization. This presentation is a testament of this journey. We're proposing some truly transformative changes, and we feel these changes will increase NSFM's capacity, and at the end of the day, it will put us in a much stronger position to accomplish our mandate.
Brenda,
So here
are you able to put it on full slide? We're seeing all your notes there. I'm not sure.
Oh, I see. Okay, let me see if I can do that differently. Okay, I'll see if I can bring up the presentation and put it in presentation mode before I share.
Sorry about that, Brenda.
Oh, that's okay.
There we go.
That work better?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Vanita, for letting me know. Sometimes you never know what what your screen is showing. So as you can see in terms of table of contents, we'll start with the purpose of the presentation, overview of proposed changes, brief explanation of each proposed change, and then feedback and questions. So change is oftentimes an important ingredient for growth. We welcome the opportunity today to make this presentation, and we are looking forward to your feedback and your questions. Okay, so the purpose of the presentation is outlining the organizational changes that are supported by the board and gathering your thoughts on these proposed changes. Okay, so the 5 key changes we'll be discussing will be guiding principles, recognition of municipal units as members, caucuses, the creation of regional electoral boundaries, and resolutions and statements of interest. And some of these changes are actually realigning things already existing in our organization, like our definition of membership. Okay, so guiding principles has really become a beacon for the board as we determine a new path forward. These are important because they clarify the values and the priorities of NSFM for the membership, the general public, other orders of government, and internal decision-making. Officializing guiding principles can help clarify what our core principles are. We have them, we just need to encapsulate them. NSFM staff will review what was discussed in the facilitated session and research other organizations for insights on styles and terminologies to recommend a finalized set of guiding principles to the board. Guiding principles we set during the session include equity and inclusion, transparency and accountability, defending municipal autonomy, sustainability and responding to climate change, as well as planning. So in terms of municipal units as members, the board had robust discussions about who our members really are. As stated in our bylaws, NSFM membership is made up of municipal units. All municipal units pay dues. Therefore, the board sees value in reaffirming that all municipal units, rather than individual councillors, mayors, or wardens, are members. This change in practice is meant to comply with our current bylaws to increase general awareness about NSFM and our work and to be more coordinated and consistent. As I will further explain, this shift will change elections and also how members can advocate priorities. So as we look at this current versus proposed practice, you can clearly see that this new process will engage all elected officials, not just those attending spring and fall conferences. So this actually improves the democratic process, giving every elected official the opportunity to vote. Individual elected officials will be able to elect their board members during NSFM elections. Every elected official will be able to vote via secret ballot within their own municipality after receiving information on nominees. NSFM will gather all individual votes and announce the election results at the annual fall conference. Rather than having elections at conferences where only a portion of the membership can attend, this new election process will enable every elected official to vote, making it much more inclusive and accessible. The president and vice president will be elected at large as part of the regional elections as well, which I will explain shortly. Staff will draft a new process for elections that will be proposed as an amendment to the bylaws and NSFM elections policy. We want to make sure that this new process is clear and effectively explained to all members so that they can be ready to participate. Now we're going to talk about the departure from caucuses. The board agreed that NSFM can do a better job with engagement and relationship building from what currently exists under the caucus structure. Caucuses have created silos, which can be counterintuitive to building collaboration on commonly felt issues. In some instances, it has created inequities in determining resolutions as some caucuses are greater in number than others. Instead, we are proposing that NSFM work in the interest of all municipalities rather than using the caucus structure. We know to acknowledge, we continue to acknowledge that different municipal types experience distinct challenges, and NSFM will help facilitate conversations about these challenges. We'd like to follow suit, though, with other municipal associations across Canada who structure membership representation on geography and specific demographics, like the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick, Municipalities of Newfoundland and Labrador, and the Union of British Columbia Municipalities. This will, of course, require some significant changes in our bylaws and policies, so staff will help map those out to be proposed as a motion. Specifically, this will change the composition of the board of directors and how members participate in the election board. This leads us to the next change being proposed. So we're proposing a more equitable election process based on geographic boundaries. This new regional approach to membership engagement will ensure representation of NSFM members from across Nova Scotia on the board of directors from shore to shore to shore. Again, NSFM staff will develop crystal clear guides for membership participation. We will now show a couple of infographics that illustrate the changes being proposed. So it's easy to see how the current method isn't nearly as equitable as the new electoral method being suggested. In the current caucus structure, regionals represent 8% of the membership, rurals 41% of the membership, and towns 51% of the membership. Each caucus gets 3 representatives with no guarantee that representatives will be balanced across regions. With elections being based on region, representation will be more equal, with each region encompassing between 16 to 24% of total member units and 14 to 23% of the total elected officials in Nova Scotia. You'll see that HRM and CBRM are guaranteed seats on the board, as the board felt that this was appropriate due to the fact that HRM contributes around 33% of the dues that finances our organization, and CBRM similarly contributes 1/10 of our overall dues. Based on feedback we've received so far, we've already considered the feasibility of the District of East Hants possibly joining the Valley region rather than Colchester, Cumberland, Pictou region, and Shelburne possibly being part of the Southwestern Shore. It's been determined that these shifts in our pre-existing regions help even further our representation between regions. So there is still more work left to do before these regions are finalized, but overall, we feel it's much more equitable and it's a much more equitable way to elect our NSFM board. So here you'll see an image of board composition before and after. So to build upon the last slide, this new regional electoral process will translate into a new board composition. Here's an image of the new board composition with regionally elected representatives and the president and vice president elected at large by all municipally elected officials. The proposed board will have 17 directors, which is an increase of 4 from our current number of 13. So one of the things we recognized as a board right away was that the resolution process just isn't working. Resolutions have been used to develop clear and commonly held priorities with the input of our membership. You may remember the days when NSFM sent an abundance of advocacy resolutions to the province with little headway or positive outcomes. So NSFM modified the resolution practice to establish 5 main resolution priorities every 3 years. And although we've made good progress on these, a lot of other work was done that isn't accounted for. Thus, we can't get a solid win. If we can't get a solid win on one or more of these 5 main resolutions, it sets us up to look ineffective to the membership. In truth, there are numerous evolving issues experienced by our members and opportunities to win improvements based on emerging issues or priorities expressed by the province. That is why we know there must be a better way. AMO has made their same choice about 10 years ago and no longer uses resolutions to drive their organization. Resolutions are not mentioned in our bylaws, just to note, but current policy states that the process for developing the 2022-2025 resolutions is to begin this June. Thus, current resolutions are up for review, so it's a good time to rethink this process. None of our current resolutions, just to note for your benefit, will be lost. They will continue to be pursued in different ways. This brings me to our final proposed change. So advisory committees and statements of interest will be much more agile than the current limited resolution process. Advocacy priorities will be determined via advisory committees. These advisory committees would be organized by general areas of municipal interest. Some examples of these are public safety and community wellness, environment and climate change, infrastructure, or municipal finance. Advisory committees will support more membership-driven mandates, which will result in much more effective advocacy. After the board establishes areas of municipal interest and strikes committees, these committees will produce statements of municipal interest that set out goals and objectives. The priorities sent to NSFM will be driven by the members. Council can submit requests for support or research to NSFM. Then the advisory committees will review and respond appropriately. The board will also consider emergent issues or concerns that do not fit within any of the advisory committees. This more agile arrangement will allow NSFM to better respond to issues as they arise and seize opportunities presented by the priorities and other orders of government. NSFM will be well situated as a hub for active conversations and can document a library of concerns and proposals for our members using the advisory committee process. Staff will strike a subcommittee to determine committee composition, selection of the initial areas of municipal interest, and develop new policies and procedures. These advisory committees will each be governed by a terms of reference approved by the board. Advisory committee reports will be added as standing items at board meetings, reporting frequency of meetings, workload, and progress of delegated requests. Statements of municipal interest will be reviewed by the membership at regular intervals, and the suggestion would be at least every 5 years. The next slide includes an infographic that illustrates this proposed process. Here you see the current resolution process determined every 3 years, and next to it, the proposed advisory committee process. So to sum, the board or staff will receive requests from members for support or investigation of issues and delegate these to the appropriate advisory committee. The board will also consider emerging issues that do not fit under any of the existing categories. The appropriate advisory committee will investigate the issue and produce a response, including findings and recommendations. These responses could include notification that A, an issue has become an active priority, B, an issue will continue to be monitored, or C, that an issue is found to be specific to this member and not one of the general membership. Responses will be determined using the NSFM advocacy, identification, and prioritization policy screening process. Existing resolutions will be assigned to the appropriate committee for review and next steps. None of these will be lost. All membership requests and responses will be filed in the NSFM Library of Municipal Interest to retain and compile this dialogue with members. This change is meant to increase our capacity as an organization and to accomplish our core goals of advocacy, education, and collaboration. Together, these changes are meant to increase NSFM capacity and to represent and engage with our membership. So for next steps, we are continuing the process of engaging with members, explaining these proposed changes, and getting feedback. Staff have been directed to review relevant bylaws and policies and prepare motions for a special meeting of the members. A subcommittee will be struck by the board to develop the plan for advisory committees and statements of municipal interest. Bylaw changes will be announced by a notice of motion 28 days in advance. The ideal time for discussion is a special meeting of the members following the spring conference, as shown in the following timeline. So February, as you can see in this timeline, February is the month of membership engagement and explanation of these changes, and then consultation will continue throughout the month of March. In order to avoid initiating the resolution process set out in a current policy, a special meeting of the members should be held following the annual spring conference. We will then set out some time to orient members around these changes so that they are ready to take part. And I appreciate the opportunity to go through the slides, and Juanita and myself are happy to accept any questions or feedback or to engage in any discussion at this time. And I will stop sharing my slides.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Hollywood Squares. Thank you so much.
As the graphs and the slides were very helpful. Are there any questions, comments? Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. And I'd like to thank the representatives here today. And I was very encouraged that you have received comments already that have caused you to think about the possibility of changes in what you've done. And I think that's great that you are so receptive. Probably each one of us who are familiar with NSFM and who have attended meetings could draft a suggested reorganization. And I'm glad that you've done it for us. And I'm also happy to see that you're traveling the province. One of the wishes I have for NSFM is that aggressively it courts the media. I believe that every time there is a discussion in the province or in the legislature about municipalities, that NSFM should be prepared to comment. And I think we want to cultivate the media so that it's not so much us going after them, but them coming after you folks to get the view of the elected representatives of the people of Nova Scotia. Thank you very much.
That's a wonderful piece of feedback and super appreciated. And I think I guess I would lean on Winita just to see if there's been any feedback received thus far in presentations to council across the province in terms of that communication plan and communication strategy with regard to media and just making sure that we're remaining plugged into what the live and current situation is as it plays out across the province. So Winita, is this something that we've heard before or something brand new?
Well, you know what, this is actually fairly new for us, but our members do want to see us out there. We know that, and we are working on that communications plan. And I think this new structure kind of puts us out there a little bit more. It engages us, it broadens our mandate, and it engages us, it allows us to work on, I guess, many other issues than we currently do right now. The media, I think, is well versed in our 5 priorities that we have. We get that out there. We've been fairly effective on that front. But this new structure positions us to talk on far more issues that are really relevant to our members and make sure we are that voice out there publicly. So the other piece, I think, is when we get our guiding principles for the organization and we're able to communicate those of what it is we stand for, who we are, and that will help also to clarify not only for the membership, not only for province, but also for the public, including the media, of who we are as an organization, what it is we stand for, and who we represent more effectively. Thanks for those comments.
Thank you. Anyone else with any questions or comments? I don't see any hands up. So ladies, I thank you very much for, Councillor Morrison, you have a second comment?
Thank you. Please continue to give us a reason for going to the annual general meeting. Some folks may have thought that going to the meeting is less important in many ways under the new structure. So please bear us in mind when you decide on the format and content of the AGM. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that comment as well. And I'm sure, Winita, this is probably something that you've been thinking on in terms of, if we are no longer looking at that electoral process occurring at our conferences, what is, I guess, what would be, we definitely want to meet the demand of what, what some of our elected officials would like to see occurring at the spring and fall conferences. And of course, it's always the great opportunity to connect, which I'm sure we all have missed over the past 2 years of COVID. And especially for the newer elected officials, it's been, really hard because what I found most valuable in my very first kind of introduction to municipal government back in 2012 was being able to get in a room with other elected officials and finding out what's going on in other municipalities. And oftentimes you find that there are common, opportunities or common issues. And then you have that opportunity to discuss, what were some of the solutions that you found in this particular situation. And then, and that's, it's like, there's such value in bringing us together and connecting, value for the newer elected officials, but value for really the longstanding elected officials to be able to get in a room and talk about, not only how do we grow our municipalities, but how do we grow our province overall. So certainly that's a great comment. We will most definitely continue to make sure that we are designing conferences that have a high level of value for our elected officials. So we hope that we'll have lots of exciting reasons for you to want to come out to our spring and fall conferences. Thank you so much for the comment.
I could just say that we actually had that same discussion with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, who we referenced before, when they got rid of their resolutions, did it have an impact on their conference? And they said for them, it actually increased engagement at the conferences because it opened up the opportunity to have more sessions, more things of value for their members to come and participate in. Educational opportunities, networking opportunities. So they saw it in their experience as a really positive thing. And so we'll be looking to them even further of how they took advantage of that additional time at their conferences where they weren't doing the votes to really engage the membership and deliver a program that folks wanted to participate in. So thank you for that comment, and we will certainly be having those conversations as an organization if the membership votes all of these changes through.
And Warden, if I may just make one other comment, if that's okay.
Sure.
So I guess what I really find exciting in terms of these changes is the opportunity to bring the advocacy of NSFM very much back to all of our council tables all across the province from shore to shore to shore, so that councils together are moving forward priorities to NSFM and to be able to do as much as we can to be able to advocate those important issues forward. So I think that I find that particularly exciting, so that it's something that can be done together as councils and moved forward versus some of those issues occurring and being discussed through a resolutions process at our NSFM spring and fall conferences. This is a real opportunity to engage every single elected official. So I find it super exciting, and I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you so much for your time here today. So
Yeah.
appreciate it.
And thank you again very much for your presentations and your comments. Very much appreciated. And we
Have a
look
lovely
forward to
day.
seeing you. We look forward to seeing you all at the conference.
Absolutely. Definitely
Thank
looking
you.
forward to it. Find me in the hallways. I'm so excited to actually get in a room with everyone. Take care.
Okay,
you.
thank
Take care.
you very much. So I think when I looked around last time, there were no further questions or comments, and I see that they've now left the room, so to speak. So thank you for that to them. We're back to our agenda. Business arising from the minutes. 6.1 Regional Emergency Management Bylaw.
You want me to read that out?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. C6 Regional Emergency Management Bylaw. Final reading from 2022, this 02-15. That municipal council give final reading to approve the C6 Regional Emergency Management Bylaw pursuant to the first reading, having been given February 15th, 2022.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Sheridan, seconds. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next, we get to the councillor comments, and we traditionally go in order of district, so we'll start with District 1.
Thank you. Good morning. I was thinking about this over the weekend, and with the arrival of daylight saving time combined with the pending arrival of the spring season next Sunday, I think I can say with some assurance that I speak on behalf of the majority, not everyone, but the majority of residents who are ready for the welcome change in seasons, goodbye, hopefully to winter. It's been an interesting month over the last few weeks. I've attended the monthly meeting of the TCTS board, along with a meeting of the Wilmot and Area Neighborhood Watch. And I've answered a number of emails and spoken with a number of residents over some topics of concern. In addition, it occurs to me that it's been 2 years since we've had a number of restrictions of COVID. As we come out of this, I won't say malaise, but as we come out of this condition, I would hope we would all feel free to follow any and all of the practices which we think will, or we feel that will help us be protected from any lingering effects of the pandemic. And most importantly, uh, treat each other with respect as we do that. So thank you so much.
District 2,
Morning, everybody. Morning, Warden. This month's been pretty busy on the phone due to the rainfall amounts we had. Transportation, being a part of transportation for many years, they had their challenges. Now the roads are closed. So people get frustrated because it takes so long to get to washouts. But you got to realize that they're only carrying half loads. The province is no different than the normal person. When the roads are closed, they have to abide by those regulations as well as the private sector. So it takes a long time for them to get to fix everything. In my area, there were some major washouts. And like I say, the phone's been ringing pretty steady, but they're gaining on them. Overall, it's been a pretty good month, and glad to see the snow going and hopefully spring around the corner, and the lifting of the restrictions we've had. So hopefully we're looking forward to a better spring and continue on. Thank you.
thank you very much. In District 3, things have actually been fairly quiet. It's been a long winter for me, and I think most people in District Number 3. I'm looking forward to the change in seasons. I did my burning yesterday because the burning restrictions come on today. So I was pleased to get that out of the way and not have to look at the chart that we see on the internet about when you can burn as we get into burning season. As far as council duties are concerned, Councillor Hudson and I met with a group in Bridgetown who are hopeful to put in a bid on the town hall building. We'll have to see how that develops. Other than that, as I said, it's been pretty quiet in District 3. So I'll move along to District 4.
Thank you. I guess I don't have a lot to report on this month. There's a few things I'd like to thank the Granville Ferry, not Granville Ferry, but the Granville Center Community Hall Association for the response, thanking us for the grant money, which is going to enable them to get their hall up to speed with electrical and other issues. So thank you, if anybody's listening, for that notification to the county via myself. I guess as we go into spring, it's not a county issue per se with a lot of the roads with potholes. It seems to be this year our pothole season is more extreme than others. I'm not sure how we move forward with that. Maybe we can discuss that if we can apply any pressures, but people are getting damage to their vehicles. I'll just leave it at that for now. The progression of the COVID in our world situation is improving as far as regulations go. Hopefully that will continue to be so, and we'll have a better tourist season this year, and it'll help stimulate some of the economy. I have had quite a few calls regarding the internet because of, the delayed progressions from Eagle in getting the main lines in, the strand and the fiber, so that they can get hooked up. They're really anxious. We need to see if we can give somebody a prod in the right direction. I'm not sure if we'll have that in our to-do list for much longer, but anyway, I really don't have too much more to say on that, but I hope everybody has a great spring, because we're stepping into that now, and the weather is seemingly cooperating. As long as March doesn't go like a lion, we'll be all right.
Thank you, Councillor Bartow. Councillor Longmire.
Good morning from District 5. As I stepped outside this morning, I could hear new birds singing, birds that I haven't heard in a fair while. So it was pretty darn exciting. The change of the season is definitely upon us, and it was wet this morning, a bit chilly, but hey, I'll take anything but the reefs of snow that we have had of late. The potholes, yes, that is daunting. I find myself driving rather on the other side of the road, as I'm sure most citizens are. But again, those are the hazards, unfortunately, of living in the northern climate, and there's lots to fix up. Hopefully, we'll get to that. The Port Wade Lower Granville Hall is having a cabbage dinner, dessert, and whatnot. Tickets are for sale at the Red Onion in Annapolis Royal, and the dinner is March 17th, and the tickets are $15 if anyone is interested. Pickup for that meal is on the 17th between 5 and 7. Seaside has been very busy hooking up in my district, and citizens are extremely pleased. I am anxious. I hear that I will be slated very, very shortly. So exciting news on the front. Other than that, everything else seems to be going well. And I wish you a great March 15th.
Thank you, Councillor Longmire. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you. The Climate Sport branch of the Royal Canadian Legion has received a most welcome grant from the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency to be applied to some energy saving projects in which the Legion is currently engaged. I attended a Zoom meeting of the Friends of the Annapolis Royal Library, and I know the warden and possibly others attended as well. Levi Cleach of the Clean Annapolis River Project spoke of the history of the river, the situation with the power plant, and future considerations. I sent him an email and we discussed tourism, including boat rides. And I hope that some enterprising individuals will run, or maybe I better say row with that matter. There was a great article in the Chronicle Herald and in the Annapolis Valley Register concerning Tripp's new art gallery in Cornwallis Park. He's making further progress and will reopen on Mother's Day. I understand also that there may well be another article on an aspect of Cornwallis Park in this week's Annapolis Valley Register. The Deep Brook Waldeck Lions Club is having a roast pork supper on Saturday, the 26th of March. The Climate Sport branch of the Royal Canadian Legion is having the second in a series of afternoon socials on Friday, the 25th of March, followed by a supper. And I may say here that the members of the Climate Sport branch are very animated in involving members of the larger community in activities held at the Legion, and that's resulting in increased attendance. Now, the very popular dinner theater will return to the Climate Sport Legion on the evenings of Saturday, 30 April and Sunday, 1st of May. They will feature 4 short plays directed by Dr. Simon Bonington and a wonderful dinner prepared by the Legion cooks. More details to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morrison. You certainly live in a busy district. Thank you for that. Councillor Hudson.
Yes, thank you very much. I first want to mention I attended 2 meetings in the recent past. The warden has already mentioned the first one, and that was a meeting in Bridgetown with the Bridgetown Development Group is what they're calling themselves now. That was a very good meeting, and they did present us with some information regarding their proposal to purchase, I guess, the town hall. I also had a second meeting, or attended the second meeting with that group in Annapolis, and that meeting was with the CIO, David Dick. There was a lot of good exchange of information at that time, and I guess we agreed at that meeting, or there was agreement at that meeting, that we would meet, say, perhaps quarterly to to discuss issues that the group may have. I also want to mention that the St. James Anglican Church in Bridgetown is again having their annual Lenten Chowders. This is a lunch-type meal, and the next dates are March 25th and April the 8th. The lunch consists of a large bowl of very good fish chowder, rolls, and desserts. These are all homemade, and speaking from experience, they are all very delicious. This is a takeout meal only, and the cost is $12. To order, either call Hilda Connell or the church hall the morning of the meeting. Call early, as they are normally sold out. While this is a way off, April 17th to 23rd is Volunteer Week. I mention this as the county is currently soliciting nominations for deserving individuals. We have many, many, many very dedicated volunteers in the county, all of whom should be recognized. Having said that, I would ask that that people get in their nominations as early as possible. And if you need any additional information, contact Nadine Bardo at the county office. To finish my remarks, I would like to say a few words about the lifting of the COVID restrictions on March the 21st. We have lived with restrictions for 2 years now, and I understand that we need to move on and to learn how to live with COVID. I believe, however, that there is still a lot of COVID around. And from information on the internet, there is still approximately 50,000 cases in Nova Scotia, which is about 5% of our population. I personally think that the actual numbers are much higher, mainly because all are not being reported or currently being reported. Having said this, I believe we should all continue to follow the current protocols like masking, hand washing, and social distancing to protect ourselves and others as we move on. We need to continue to be very careful, or we may be under restrictions again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hudson. Deputy Warden?
Thank you. I really didn't make up a written report because it's been such a slow month, but I will say I've been fielding calls from citizens in Maitland Bridge about the request for proposal that's being put out by Canada Post for a new post office, somebody to run a post office out in that area. I would like to echo Councillor Prout's comment or thoughts, though, of let's treat each other with the respect that people deserve for their different thoughts of opinion and one thing and another. We all have our own ideas, thoughts, and under the charter, we're guaranteed them. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Councillor Sheridan?
Thank you. My district has been very quiet. However, I would like to give a huge shout out to District 6. There was a news article on CTV News and an interview with Beth Earl and how they are going to be taking in refugees from Ukraine. And I couldn't say how much prouder I was to see that article and be part of the county. That I could not let that go unnoticed. They had a beautiful aerial view. I think it was drone footage of the basin and the whole community. It was a very impressive article on the news. So also, I'm looking forward to coming back in person and seeing everybody in person. This has been great. However, it is nice to actually see each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sheridan. Councillor Redden?
Thank you, Warden. My apologies to the clerk for not sending this to her in advance. Actually, yeah. The Lawrencetown Pool Society is having a meeting tonight at the library in Lawrencetown at 6:30. Fairly broad discussion, I think, is on the agenda. On April 3rd, from noon to 1:30 p.m., there is a seed swap and social at the Honeywoofer Homestead on, I forget if it's the west or east Dalhousie Road. I would, there, it's towards Springfield anyways. On April the 5th at 7 p.m., the Brickton Hall is hosting an open house and, or maybe, yeah, and meeting of some sort. Also, the Annapolis Valley Exhibition is planning a very busy summer. I wouldn't say, from my understanding, quite back to normal. And they are being very cautious about what they do plan so that it could still be sustainable under any sort of restrictions or anything that may or may not come back in. In particular, they've nailed down the musical ride for the RCMP for, I believe it's in June. I haven't got the exact date here in front of me. And I wanted to encourage everybody to get out and participate in several bio blitzes that are taking part in the county in the spring. There's a number of them around. So they're a great way to be involved in citizen science. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Redden. Councillor LeBlanc.
Thank you, Warden. I as well was watching the TV the other evening and saw the great news for District 6 and Cornwallis Park. And we had, the councillor and I had discussed this prior to, and it was really nice to see that it is an opening for residents from Ukraine who are suffering great damages and suffering as well. Secondly, we are going to be going into a total change for 2 years in being slightly free to roam around. And it's great to see, but as has been said before, we have to adapt to the way of living that not all of us have the same thought. So we have to be vigilant on how other residents, people from everywhere, not only our county, feel about wearing masks. There's nothing wrong if they wish to wear a mask, and it shouldn't be looked upon as being a good, bad thing. It's just the way that they feel safe, and the rest, and we just need to adapt to how it's going to go forwards. And hopefully the numbers will be going down. I have to say that I've heard numbers going up, which is not always grand to hear. However, hopefully everything will work out. One item that Councillor Proud, I didn't expect him to forget, or maybe he didn't know about it, but Auntie Dorn's is kind of thinking of reopening in the middle of April here. It's tentative, but they are definitely reopening, and I saw those great big burgers coming out. That was on Facebook. I thought, oh dear, we're going to be in trouble. So that was exciting to see, because now you know the winter's going and spring is coming and summer is not far behind. The next and very important thing that I've done this month was on March 5th. I went to celebrate Mrs. Ethel McLean's 100th birthday. The community at Torbrook Mines got together and they walked over to her residence, and she was there with her daughter, who had come down to celebrate with her, and other family members, and everybody sang to the top of their lungs, happy birthday to this young, very knowledgeable lady of 100 years. So it was my honor and my pleasure to present to her the certificate that was made up for the County of Annapolis, and give it to her on her special day. And she was quite pleased to see that. And she thanked me dearly. And she said, I'll see you 100 years. I said, yeah, right, not me. So, but she had a grand time, and all of the neighbors that were there and all the community that was there. So it was excellent to see, and she still is quite energetic. So it's nice to see that. So thank you very much.
Good. Thank you, Councillor LeBlanc. That's quite a story. Well, thank you, councillors. Councillor Prout.
Just on a, not a point of order, but I thank Councillor LeBlanc for, I also noticed yesterday driving by, there was a flurry of activity at Auntie Dorn's. And I thought that's a sure sign of spring. I hadn't seen the date on Facebook, but I'll have a full report next month
I'm sure you will.
on how the food is, which I'm sure it will be excellent. And I wanted to put together something for next month on the number of businesses that are opening up in District 1 or not opening, reopening or starting out anew in the spring. But thank you, Councillor LeBlanc. I'm glad to hear of the date.
Well, thank you, Councillor Prout. And if I'd be allowed to just add to what Councillor Longmire said about the birds returning, I'm looking out my window at my pond, and for the first time this year, I see a pair of mallard ducks in the pond. So spring's coming. Madam Clerk.
Yeah, before we go into new business, Warden, I was handed a note by someone who checks on things for me about process for committees. The Fire Services Committee Association should be approaching council with what their concerns are so that council can then refer the matter to the committee so that the committee can do a recommendation back to council through committee of the whole.
So you're suggesting that there should be a message coming from the Fire Services Committee to us rather than us asking them to meet? Is that?
The Fire Services Association, if they have issues they wish to have discussed at the committee level, the Fire Services Association should be asking council so that council can refer that matter to the committee for discussion, rather than it happening inside out the way that's being presented today.
Did you understand that, Councillor Redden?
Yes, I kind of thought that's what I was doing, but I'm more than happy to follow along with whatever the county clerk wants me to do.
I'm not certain. I was only going by the statement that you said the Fire Services Association wants the committee to meet. So that should be formally presented to council so that council can formally refer it to the committee. Council right now doesn't know what they're asking, so. I just was commenting on process according to policy.
Should I have that outlined in the motion that I present, or should I have a document presented for the next council? Are we, I'm kind of wondering what threshold of detail do we want to present?
Madam Clerk, I'm happy to have you or Mr. Dick respond, but having not been through this myself before, I'll probably make a mistake. But it sounds to me like the Fire Services Association should be sending a letter to Mr. Dick outlining their concern, which would get referred to the commission or something along those lines. I see the clerk nodding her head.
Correct.
So I guess the suggestion, and I'm looking at you, Councillor Redden, because you put that on the agenda, that this not go on the agenda, but rather that there be a letter sent to Mr. Dick with the concerns, and that it then be referred to the commission. Mr. Dick, can you help us out on this, or should we leave it to the clerk? Or
my suggestion is leave it with the clerk.
okay. So I think what we'll do, Councillor Redden, this is a matter simply of process, and I see Councillor Hudson's hand up, and I'll get to him, is that we might take this off the agenda, you speak to the clerk, and then proceed It doesn't have to require a motion from council, but it would be a formal request coming to Mr. Dick on behalf of the municipality, and he would then refer it to the commission is where I think we are, but I'm happy to stand corrected. Councillor Hudson, did you want to say something?
Yes. Is it not the normal procedure for things to go to committee first and then on to council? I'm just going from what I've witnessed here in the last year and a half, but.
Madam Clerk?
Proper process that's in policy is for issues to come before council and for council to refer to a committee to conduct the work. The committees are only responsive to what municipal council sends to them to work on. It shouldn't be working from the committee up. It should be working from, so something goes to council, council can refer it to a committee for further work and recommendation back. That's how it's supposed to work.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I think what we'll do, Councillor Redden, it is on the agenda. We'll leave it there. When we get to it, we'll have a few minutes for all of us to think about the process. And when it comes up on the agenda, I'll look to you as to what you wish to do in that regard. How's that? Okay. So we're finished councillor comments and we'll go on with new business. The first is a verbal update on the Bear River water.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. This is really from Janice. Janice unfortunately had to go for a medical appointment first thing this morning, so I will speak on her behalf. This is in relation to, and I apologize for the lateness of this coming to council. We only got confirmation from ICIP yesterday in terms of what the process should be. So council's aware, and certainly Deputy Warden Gunn has brought this to council's attention on a number of occasions about water services for the area of Bear River. The warden and the deputy warden and I met with the owner of Sissebu Coffee, I think it was last fall at some point, to talk about a process going forward. One of the conditions was that they were supposed to have a number of people that would sign on to being recipients of this new water service. So that's being done. We've got confirmation from John that there would be at least 10 people interested in providing or having water services delivered to their commercial properties. One of the key components of this ICIP funding, however, is that there has to be a residential benefactor of this. And as we understand it, there's at least one resident that would be hooking into this potential water line. So I'm just going to give council a couple of bullet points here that it's called the ICIP funding, which is Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. It's a joint stream from the province and the federal government. They will fund up to 73.33% of a project if it's eligible. There is no stacking of funding from other levels of government, and the recipients have to contribute the balance of it, which is roughly, let's just say for argument's sake, 27%. One of the issues that we just got yesterday is that the Bear River utility, which is Hillsborough Water Society, cannot make an application for this funding. So the way we've orchestrated this, if council approves it, is that we will make an application for funding for water services that will go from, and maybe Deputy Warden Gunn, you can help me out with this. It's basically from the bridge up through the commercial district of Bear River. We will be the ultimate owners of that water system. It won't be Hillsborough. And I think, subject to council's approval, if council is interested in doing this, I will read a motion that council can discuss. And if they do, it's really a housekeeping issue that we have to send an approved motion to ICIP before they start doing any of the legwork in terms of putting a funding proposal together for us and on our behalf. So if Deputy Warden Gunn, if you wanted to add some comments to that before I read the motion.
Well, I do know that the last few years they've been looking to extending that water from across the bridge up to the school that they use there. What's the name of the old school?
The Oak Dean Center.
The Oaking Center, that's right, up as far as there, and there are a few more residences along the way to there. So from what the talk is, everybody, when the water's there, they'll sign on, but before you know it, in a few years, there will be a utility, because I think after we work to get this through and across the river, there'll be a lot of people, and eventually there will have to be a water utility created for Bear River Digby. Thank you.
I see your hand up, Councillor LeBlanc. I just wonder whether, as a matter of process, I should invite Mr. Dick to put his motion on the floor. If someone would move it, and then I'll come to you for a discussion. So, Mr. Dick, I'm happy to have you make a verbal motion at this point, since you just received the information yesterday. And if you would read it, I'll ask someone to see if there's a councillor who will move and second it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Warden. Bear with me. Okay, the motion is that municipal council support and approve the completion of an application for funding through the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, Green Infrastructure, ICIP Environmental Quality Stream for the potable water project titled Potable Water Distribution System Expansion for Bear River, and that municipal council supports municipal financing of the remaining 26.67% of project costs not covered by ICIP and charge back to financing to the residential and commercial users of the water system, water service through a local improvement / betterment charge.
So moved.
Moved by the Deputy Warden. Is there seconded by Councillor Morrison? Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc.
Thank you. Of this 26.6% cost, does that include that comfort center that we had discussed?
It doesn't at this point.
Mhm. All right, so what do you think there would be a cost of approximate for a 26%?
The total projected cost is roughly, I'm going to say, the difficulty in me quoting a number is because, as Deputy Warden Gunn said, one of the things that we want to do is make sure that this is expandable to the residential units that haven't signed on yet. But certainly for the system that we're looking at now is probably in the neighborhood of 325,000, the total cost. So 26% roughly of that would be assigned to the benefiting landowners.
Thank you.
Thank you. I saw another hand up. I thought I did. Yes, I did. Councillor Barto.
Yeah, thank you. I had my hand up, but Councillor LeBlanc expanded on her question. I was just going to interject, if asked if we knew a budget cost on that. So that was answered before it got to be my turn. Thank you.
Anyone else? I don't see any hands up. I'll just say that I'm very much in favor of this proposal. I think we all know that the commercial operators in Bear River have had to pay an inordinate amount of money to have water trucked in over the past years. That, in fact, there's a restaurant there on stilts, I forget the name of it, which is now, I think, for sale. And it was rented, I believe, to the person running the restaurant, and his water bill was more than his rent. And so this is, I think, long overdue, and I'll be supporting the motion. Any other comments? Seeing none, Mr. Dick, I would appreciate if you would.
Councillor LeBlanc has a comment, Mr. Warden.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor LeBlanc.
I'm totally in favor of this. They've been waiting for water for a long time. I just see that this is totally different than what was on the agenda before this, because it included using or Digby participating and adding and helping on to the cost and going from one water utility to the rest, or to Annapolis County side. I know this is totally different. And I thought that the comfort center was part of this, and it would be part of it to include in it. or was the lead into giving the water to Cornwallis Park? I'm giving a lot of information there, but the bottom line is it is a different thing that we're used to hearing about, or I am. And I'm thinking, is this better than what was proposed before? That's what I'd like to hear, that it's better than what was proposed before. And we can move on from here and be on the road to helping all of these people out. So how is it different? If it is.
Mr. Dick?
What I can say is that certainly Digby is still being asked to make a contribution at this point. It will involve potentially digging another well, as I understand it. It doesn't mean that we aren't considering the comfort station, but we don't want that to be the delaying factor. It has been a delay certainly in the past. And I will say the proposal that was presented to council a number of years ago, as we review it, there was a number of inaccuracies in that presentation in terms of costing the county funds, for example, which this type of project is not supposed to cost the county anything. So there's a bunch of things that happen with that one. We are still pursuing the comfort center, but certainly at this point, I think the priority is making sure that water's there. And if we can get the comfort center as a byproduct of that and provide some economic development, further economic development opportunities to Bear River, that's what we will do.
Great, thank you very much. That's what I wanted to hear.
Deputy Warden, I saw your hand up.
Thank you, Warden, but Mr. Dick's already answered
Yeah.
the point I was going to make. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands up, so I'll ask Mr. Dick to read again the motion that's on the floor.
Well, you're putting a lot of pressure on me. Okay, the motion that municipal council support and approve the completion of an application for funding through the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, Green Infrastructure, ICIP, Environmental Quality Stream for the potable water project titled Potable Water Distribution System Expansion for Bear River, and that municipal council supports the municipal financing of the remaining 26.67% of project costs not covered by the ICIP and charge back the financing to the residential and commercial users of the water service through a local improvement / betterment charge.
Thank you. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you for that. Next is the Volunteer Recognition Selection Committee, 8.2. Who's going to speak to that? Madam Clerk?
That was circulated by Nadine Bardo. And she is just, I believe, I'm trying to see if I can find it. She's looking for 2 councillor volunteers to serve on the selection committee. Doesn't need to be by motion, doesn't need to be nominated. 2 volunteers who will contact Nadine and say that they're interested.
Can we do that now, councillors? Are there any 2 that would volunteer at the moment? Oh, I see some hands up. So Councillor Longmire, I saw yours first. And Councillor Redden, I saw yours second. If there's more, we can have a vote.
I've been on that selection committee the last few years, so I'd like somebody else to do it.
Well, we have 2 volunteers, which is wonderful. Thank you very much for volunteering. And unless there's more that wish to contest the 2, Councillor Hudson.
Yeah, no, I just noted that Councillor Morrison had his hand up as well. Did he want to be considered?
Councillor Morrison, I didn't see your hand up. Did you have your hand up?
Not raised.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, I think we've dealt with that for the record. Councillors Longmire and Redden will be on the Volunteer Recognition Selection Committee, and thank you to both of you.
And you will each contact Nadine.
Next is the convening of the Annapolis Fire Commission, if I have the name right,
Fire
Councilor
Services
Redden.
Committee.
Committee. Have you considered how you wish to deal with this matter, having heard from the clerk?
I had a number of details in my motion I'd written up here, but being the stickler for policy I am, I find it very hard for me to bring this forward. I was contacted by the ACFSA last Wednesday, and I think I've dropped the ball in the appropriate process, and I will bring it forward for next month's council.
Just for clarification, I see your hand up, Councillor Connell. Did you want to say something in that regard?
Well, I thought we had talked previous of engaging in a fire service review. So I don't see where fire services trying to jam things through before we actually do a review of fire services. So I would hope to think that if we're planning a fire service review, that we would take their concerns at that time on doing something, instead of putting the cart ahead and trying to settle some of the things that they would maybe like to see fixed in their services. If we're going to do a fire service review. If we're not going to do a fire service review, then I could definitely see sending stuff to the committee to try to figure out if we could fix some of the issues that they see. But I don't want to have conflict in between trying to do something before we're actually doing our own review of all fire services.
Thank you for that. I think Councillor Redden said that he was going to consider the process again, and I assume he'll speak to the clerk when we're done and proceed. I guess as the policy suggests, we should proceed, keeping in mind Councillor Connell's comments. Is that fair enough? Councillor Sheridan, you wish to?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I'm not sure if after they have the review or these meetings, if it's going to impact our budget in any way. So I was just wondering if this is something that may or should be pushed through a little bit earlier, depending on what their ask is or what it's going to be in regards to the budget. It's just
Councillor Redden? Councillor Redden?
As a clarification here, they've only asked for a discussion. So I would, and that is how I phrased my motion, is for a discussion. So a recommendation coming back would be nothing more than a summary of what was discussed in my mind. I don't know how we would, my motion is not framed in such a way that we can bring a recommendation back to council. But as I said before, I don't entirely feel comfortable bringing this forward at this moment if I'm not using the proper process. I think that's in part a large part of their discussion, and I will happily bring it back next month.
Okay, thank you. I think the understanding I have is that Councillor Redden will bring this back in the appropriate time and place according to our policy, is that right, Councillor Redden? Have I got it straight there? Great, thank you very much for bringing that up. All right, that's the end of new business. We're next to committee and organizational reports. Committee of the Whole reports, 9.1.
Committee of the Whole?
Committee of the Whole, yes.
Okay, Committee of the Whole, February 28, 2022. Facilitate 9.1.
Excuse me, Warden, Councillor Hudson had his hand up.
Sorry about that. I didn't see you, Councillor Hudson. What did you want to say? You're muted, Councillor Hudson.
Yeah, just before proceeding, maybe I'm not following this quite correctly. Pages 23 and 24 in our package. What was the purpose of that being included in the package?
It is Schedule A to the minutes.
Oh, that relates to the minutes, does it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's the way I took it too, and I think it's fortuitous that you had your hand up, Councillor Hudson, because is this the motion that you were going to excuse yourself from? Councillor Hudson, you're muted.
Yes, I have an interest or conflict of interest in respect to 9.1. I'm the treasurer of that group. So perhaps I'd ask the warden to have the clerk put me in the waiting room.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, if you do that.
I will do that.
Okay, I don't see Councillor Hudson, so I assume he's in the waiting room. So we're back to the deputy warden to read the motion.
9.1, Committee of the Whole, February 8th, 2022. Facilities Operating Agreement, Bridgetown Regional Recreation Association. That Municipal Council approved the facilities operating agreement with the Bridgetown Community Recreation Association, BCRA, for the Bridgetown and District Memorial Arena, Bridgetown Centennial Pool, and the Bridgetown Memorial Ballpark.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Barto seconds. Discussion? Councillor Redden?
Yeah, just one quick thing. I was very happy to see with this that we've built in a budget for the upcoming years so that they can plan accordingly, and that increase is around about 4% a year, which I think is great. It takes into account current elevated inflation rates and things like this, and I'm very happy about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.
9.2.
Just Deputy Warden, let's bring Councillor Hudson back in.
Oh, okay.
I guess he left his own room as well as our room. There he is. Okay.
9.2. Committee of the Whole, March 8th, 2022. AM-2.1.22 inclement weather unsafe travel conditions policy amend. That Municipal Council amend AM-2.1.22 inclement weather unsafe travel conditions policy in accordance with 7-day notice being given.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Crouch seconds. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Next.
9.3 AM-1.4.12 tax exemption policy amend. That Municipal Council amend AM-1.4.12 tax exemption reduction policy by moving Middleton and District Lions Club, PRO Prop number 903-228-819 from District 8 to District 9. Moving the Keith Lodge prop number 804-561-856 from District 9 to District 8. and adding Bear River Board of Trade Lot 95-1C D E F, 100 Wharf Street property number 807-029-330 to District 8 pursuant to 7-day notice given.
Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Sheridan. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.
9.4 AM-2.4.1 Performance Evaluation Policy Repeal. That municipal council repeal AM-2.4.1 Performance Evaluation Policy in accordance with 7-day notice given.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Connell seconds. Discussion? Councillor Barto?
Yeah, I still, as previously discussed prior meeting, that removing a policy before there's a new one in place is not the right procedure. And I wanted to state my opinions on that, get them on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. One nay. Thank you for that. Next.
There was a nay vote. Sorry.
9.5
Pardon me, Madam Clerk.
I didn't see the nay vote. I'm just catching up to you. Thank you.
Okay.
9.5 Fire Services Capital Withdraw, Annapolis Royal Volunteer Fire Department. That municipal council authorize a withdrawal of $220,000 from the Fire Services Reserve, Fire Services Capital Reserve to the Annapolis Royal Volunteer Fire Department to assist in the rebuild of a top mount pumper.
Is there a second for that? Councillor Barto seconds. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.
9.6 Annapolis County and Kings County Emergency Measurement Mutual Aid Agreement. That municipal council approve the mutual aid agreement between the County of Kings, the town of Berwick, the town of Kentville, the town of Wolfville, the County of Annapolis, the town of Annapolis Royal, and town of Middleton.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Barto seconds. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.
9.7 Community Grants Program Current Applications. That municipal council approved the allocation of funds from the 2021-22 Community Grants Program in accordance with AM-1.4.9 Community Grants Policy for a total of $6,446 as follows. $2,400 for George Regional Recreation Commission, $1,646 Lawrencetown and Area Seniors Association, LASA, and $2,400 Clemensville and District Recreation Association.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Barto seconds. Discussion? I don't see any, so I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.
9.8 Fire Services Capital Withdraw. Lawrencetown Volunteer Fire Department. That municipal council authorize the Lawrencetown and District Fire Department to proceed with obtaining quotes for a replacement tanker.
Is there a seconder for that? Counselor Redden seconds. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.
9.9, Fire Services Capital Withdrawal, North Queens Fire Association. That municipal council authorized the North Queens Fire Association to proceed with the acquisition of a replacement utility rescue vehicle and funds to come from the 2021-22 Fire Services Capital Reserve in the amount of $40,000, with the option to withdraw additional funds from the capital reserve when funds are made available in future capital reserve funds.
Is there a seconder for that? Counselor Bartow seconds. Discussion? Counselor Hudson?
Yes, I'd like to make a slight amendment to that motion. And that would be to just delete the reference to the 2021, 2022. Remove those dates.
Right.
Is there a seconder for that? Counselor Bartow seconds the amendment. Discussion? Counselor Hudson, do you want to address the purpose of your amendment?
Yes, basically my purpose is that, I don't think it should be limited to the 2021, 2022 fire capital reserve, because that fiscal year is ending in a few weeks' time. And so I just think it has to extend beyond that. So leaving it open to me, is a better practice.
Any other discussion with respect to the amendment? Counselor Morrison?
I thank Councillor Hudson for his explanation. I'm at a loss to understand why, if we pass this motion as is worded, that the funds will not be available before the end of March to the North Queens Fire Association. It seems to me that once we pass the motion, they get the money.
Any other comments?
That was a question.
No. Counselor Sheridan?
I also agree that the money will be funded immediately after passing the motion. So I don't feel the need to remove it. Just, I guess I'll vote against the amendment.
Counselor LeBlanc, did I see your hand up there?
Yes, you did. And I was confused as the other two previous counselors that I don't see that it should be removed. So, yeah, I'll probably vote against it.
Okay, Counselor Redden?
What is the process for funds being dispersed to a third party organization? Like, after we've passed this motion, do they just get a check cut, or do we wait for them to show up with an invoice? Is this money just sort of, because once it's out the door, we don't have any more say over it, really? I was curious.
Mr. Dick, can you respond to that question?
Mr. Ward, maybe I'll ask Don to comment on that.
Sure. Ms. Campbell?
Sure. The normal procedure in the past has been to issue a check right away or as soon as possible, based on the motion of council as an approval for an expenditure. We have undertaken to do electronic fund transfers. The warden's quite familiar with the fact that we're transitioning to that I'm not sure whether this particular organization has been set up for that. It would be one of those venues.
Any other questions or comments? Deputy Warden?
I may, I completely understand Councillor Hudson's motion there, but you know, it can stay in or stay out as far as I'm concerned. It really doesn't make much difference. I mean, they are able to withdraw the funds. And the 2021 fire reserves capital is there. It's for them. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Barto?
Yeah, it's just the extension that's on there about with the option to withdraw other funds when the fund builds up. You know, that kind of takes it with it outside of that 2021, 2022 frame. And that would be why I support the motion.
We're actually talking about the amendment at the moment. Councillor Morrison?
That was what the backup for that amendment, what I was saying.
Yeah, I agree. Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. And I liked Councillor Barto's comment. However, I would point out that it's the $40,000 coming from this year's budget. And they're simply saying that when additional funds become available, then they will go through the normal process to access those funds. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Redden?
This is somewhat adjacent, but so if we approve these funds now, how does that get recorded? Are they, I understand from accounting principles, you have to incur costs. You have to record costs when they're incurred, if I understand that. So even if we approve these funds now and let's say everybody gets sick and they don't get released until April, are they still recorded as a March expense? Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Mr. Dick, can you respond to the question?
I will, Mr. Warden. Council has to remember that reserves are treated somewhat differently than regular disbursements. So what we're asking for is a commitment from council to release funds from a reserve. And what a reserve is an accumulation of either surpluses or money set aside from previous periods. So what we're looking for is a commitment from council to approve this expenditure, release of funds from the reserve. And as the deputy CAO said, is that the likelihood of this happening is by 2 o'clock today, we'll issue a check request through the accounts payable department and the funds will be released.
Any other comments on the amendment that's on the floor? Councillor Barto?
Yeah, just to follow up on that, it says I'm going back to with the option to withdraw more in the future. That kind of leaves it open so that staff can just issue, or, I mean, it doesn't say that they would apply for that at the time. Can I get clarification on that?
Mr. Dick?
Staff does not have the ability to move money in and or out of reserves without council's approval.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I have a question. So Deputy Warden, would you take the floor while I ask my question?
Sure.
Mr. Dick, the amendment on the floor is that the 2021-22 fire services capital reserve is the source from which the money will come. Is there a separate reserve set every year like this, or is it just an ongoing reserve? That's my question. Is there a new reserve? Is it just fixed at budget time because of what's in it, or how does that work?
Don, would you like to respond to that?
Sure. Probably the easiest explanation is that it's a static reserve with a running tally of allocations for each 11 fire department. And so the reason that the fiscal year was included in the motion is that they're making a withdrawal of what they have confirmed or exceeded is available in the reserve credited to that particular fire department. And they would be looking to go through this process again based on their needs and their allocation from the next year's budget, which would go into the reserve and add to the tally for that particular department.
Thank you for that. I'll take the chair back. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? So the amendment, Madam Clerk, would you read the amendment that's on the floor?
Yes, it was moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Barto to amend the motion to delete 2021/22.
Thank you. So I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
1, 2, 3. I count 3. All those against the amendment, say nay and raise your hand. Nay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The amendment is defeated 8-3. So we have the original motion on the floor. Any comments on the motion? I don't see any hands up, so I'll call for the vote. It's been read out and it's written in front of you, so I don't think we need it read again. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.
9.10, 2022 mandatory boundary review. That municipal council authorized staff to conduct the 2022 mandatory review of polling districts and to follow the criteria established by the Utility and Review Board, UARB, preparing information on status quo 11, 9, and 7 districts for presentation to the public, and that municipal council determine the scope of the public participation process to follow the residents of the county of Annapolis to have input in the boundary sub-study.
Is there a second for that? Councillor Sheridan seconds. Discussion? I don't see any hands up, so I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.
9.11, support for Ukraine. That municipal council send a letter to express to the ambassador of Ukraine to Canada and to all Ukrainians everywhere its complete support as Ukraine defends its democratic independence against an unlawful invasion of its democratic homeland.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Morrison seconds. Discussion? Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. If I may, I'm very pleased that this motion in Committee of the Whole received unanimous approval by Committee of the Whole, and I look forward to the same result here. I would just like you to come on a little trip with me. And in this trip, we are joined by every resident of Newfoundland and Labrador, every resident of Prince Edward Island, every resident of New Brunswick, and every resident of Nova Scotia, and we must leave our homes and go to Quebec. In addition, we are joined by every resident of the province of Manitoba, and they will go to Ontario. This is what is happening today over 3 million Ukrainians have left their homeland to escape the scourge of war. Now, during the time the Pearson Peacekeeping Center, now disbanded, was in Cornwallis Park, we welcomed thousands of civilian and military folks from around the world to learn about conflict resolution and associated subjects. And a number of those came from Ukraine. In addition, my staff members went to Ukraine and courses in that barracks that we have seen destroyed in the last few days. And former members of the Pearson Peacekeeping Center staff have kept in contact with some of those Ukrainians. And one former staff member tells me that he was in constant contact over a few years with 3 particular people in Ukraine who had been here to Cornwallis Park. And now there is no contact at all. Another former staff member is in contact with a person who was here, who is in Kyiv and is still safe. Another one had been in contact with 2 additional people who enjoyed the hospitality of Annapolis County and who are in Kiev and apparently safe. In my district, I have a Ukrainian Canadian who has been here only recently. And this resident of District 6 has a sister who was formerly in Ukraine, but has now escaped to Poland because of this war. The Annapolis Basin Conference Center has been in contact with the Minister of Immigration for the province of Nova Scotia and the Minister of Immigration for the Government of Canada, who incidentally is from Nova Scotia, to indicate that there is space here. My last communication with the Chief Executive Officer of the Annapolis Basin Conference Center was that no commitments had yet to be made, but there is no doubt, there should be no doubt, there must be no doubt in the minds of the various governments that ABCC is willing to take. I've also been contacted by a number of people from the county who are interested in forming a welcoming committee. And I've passed that information on to the CEO of ABCC, who is bearing that in mind if refugees are sent here. I would like to conclude my remarks with a few words a member of District 6 sent to me, entitled, "We are all citizens of the world." Sitting staring through my large window to the world, enjoying our peace and tranquility, it is hard to realize people are being killed. Young men and women we met at the Pearson Peacekeeping Center are now engaged in war. In all probability, their families, of whom they spoke with such pride while they were here in Nova Scotia, are on the run. We have no real concept of the savages and ravages of war. We can sit and watch the news and think how awful it is. But imagine having to toss a few bits into a backpack and leave your home and your town and your country because of the actions of a totalitarian regime. We are citizens of the world and must right to support one another against the evils of war. My dear friends in Germany, this person writes, are so upset, and they have organized food and clothing and money to support the refugees who are coming into Germany with nothing. And these friends in Germany remember what life was like under the Deutsches Demokratisches Republik, known as East Germany, and it is a nightmare to them. But here I sit and look out on peace, and I experience the tranquility that this brings, and we must do all we can. That was written by my wife, Elizabeth McMichael. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morrison. Councillor Longmire.
Thank you. I just want to say a huge thanks to Councillor Morrison for those most eloquent words, and yes, written by your wife, but shared so beautifully to us here today. What stands out is we are all citizens of this world, and I will go forward today with so much of what you have shared here. I too, in our District 5, have persons living who have recently moved here from Ukraine. And so their families are there, whether they're able to make contact where they are at this point. It's something we can't even imagine. We're not there and we don't know the pain and agony. We can watch it, but we cannot feel it the way that they are feeling it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Longmire. Anyone else? If not, I'll call for a vote on the motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.
Nine point two or 9.12, donation to Red Cross for Ukraine. That municipal council make a donation of $500 to the Red Cross to assist Ukrainians in this time of need with money to come from grant funds.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Longmire seconds. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you for the committee reports. Next, we're at 10.1, annual reports. These are received for information. They were listed in the Committee of the Whole report that we had last week. There's one more to be added to the list, which is the Visitor Information Center at Annapolis Royal. That's in the package. According to the agenda, those reports are to be received for information. So Deputy Warden, if a motion is required, would you make that motion?
Perhaps you could direct me to the page where there's a motion.
I don't think there is one. It's simply a motion to receive for information the annual reports.
Okay. Move to receive the annual reports for information.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Prout seconds. Is there any discussion? Councillor LeBlanc?
I only have a question, Mr. Warden. Where is this information center?
I can answer that. It's if you go to the market in Annapolis Royal, just to the north of the parking lot across the street, there's a new comfort center with washrooms, and half the building is the Visitor Information Center and the other half are the washrooms.
So is that the building that we provided to Annapolis Royal?
You got
I
it.
believe it was,
Yes.
and on the right-hand side, there's a private retail outlet.
Yes.
Private retail outlet, okay. That's all I needed to know, make sure that I knew where it was and if it was in that building. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
Question on the motion, please, Warden.
The motion's on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.
Sorry, I thought you were moving on.
Was.
We don't have any in-camera matters today. So the next item on the agenda is the adjournment, but before we do that, if there's anything else anybody would like to, feel they wish to bring up before we adjourn for the day, I'd be pleased to hear from you. Councillor Hudson?
Yes, something very quick. Is it expected that we will be meeting in chambers next month?
I believe so. I think that's the only way I can respond, Councillor Hudson, is
Okay.
I believe so. I haven't had that formally confirmed, but we know that the state of emergency is going to end on the 21st, and we'll see how we go from there, but I believe that we'll be meeting in person.
Okay.
Councillor Prout?
Thank you. I remembered. Just a final remembrance to everybody, a reminder rather to everybody about tomorrow's GTCS tour in Bridgetown at 1:30.
Right. Thank you for that. Councillor Longmire?
Thank you. I just, I'm going back to, sorry, to look at here, to motion 9.11 and 9.12. And I go back to our committee of the whole last week where we had spoke about when we're voting, how important it is that we show a hand for our yay or for nay. And I do believe that those two motions, I did not see our deputy warden's hand. So I'm just wanting to check in on how those votes were calculated and if they're recorded as such.
Because there is no abstention, a non-vote is counted in favor of the motion.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Unless there's anything else, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Longmire. Any discussion on the motion to adjourn? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much, council. We'll see you next month.